This is Practically Culture, a podcast devoted to TV, movies, sometimes video games, and other pop culture. I'm your host, Logan Bowe, podcasting from Lehigh, and I'm joined, as always, by the one, the only Bob Caswell in the Bay Area. How are you, Bob?
Hey there, doing great. How's it going with you?
Just hanging out, you know me.
Nice.
Welcome to our main show. This week, we review A Simple Favor, and we have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. If you like what you hear, look for us on the usual podcast feed and at practicallyculture.com, also on YouTube. We recommend to check it all out if you're into the show. It's TV, it's movies, it's sometimes video games. It's Practically Culture. Let's rock. Oh, man, it is good to be back, Bob. And I got a little confession. I am back to fasting. Hopefully not super long, but the weight's been creeping up on me. I have to nip that in the bud, so I'm going hardcore again.
Ooh, like super fasting, not this lightweight stuff that I do where I skip breakfast and don't eat at night.
Yeah, that's intermittent fasting. But for now, I'm on day 3. I've done a lot longer than that before. I'm trying to plan to go maybe 8 days this time.
8 days? Ooh.
But I've certainly done longer than that. Anyway, that's just, it's dominating sort of my experience right now, so I thought I'd bring that up.
Well, I wish you well, and I hope you can still podcast through this experience. Sounds like you can. So far, so good.
Well, I've done it before, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right.
Anyway, ready to get to this?
Yeah, let's do it.
A Simple Favor. Stephanie is a mommy blogger, really vlogger, who seeks to uncover the truth behind her best friend Emily's sudden disappearance from their small town. Starring Anna Kendrick, Blake Lively, and Henry Golding. Directed by Paul Feig. Written by Jessica Sharzer, who I looked up, and she's also written Nerve. Did we both see Nerve, or was it just me, the one with Emma Roberts and
I think just you,
brother, not James Franco, his brother,
Dave Franco.
Dave Franco. Yeah. Anyway, I liked it. Okay, I think I can't remember exactly. I'm sure it's in our mini reviews history, but and it's also based on the novel by Darcy Bell. What's your mini review, Bob?
All right. Well, here's the thing, A Simple Favor, and I'll just say it exactly as it is. Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively each bring their own charm to this postmodern film noir tale full of intrigue and secrets until it's not. The second half payoff felt underwhelming as compared to the first half buildup. I still liked it. It's a 3.5 out of 5 stars.
What makes this postmodern to you?
People say it a lot. I'm completely honest with you.
Okay.
And there's got this vibe of maybe it's just modern. It's just 21st century. It's trying to like have influences from film noir of the past, but then it's got all these quirky little things about life today. I don't know. Good question. I'm
okay. All right, here's my mid review.
Okay.
A different, livelier tone for a suspense thriller with some charming acting, especially from Anna Kendrick, with about twice as many plot twists as I needed. 3 out of 5 for me.
Okay. I figured it was a 3 out of 5.
What did you give it again? I'm sorry?
A 3.5.
All right. But I will say this is definitely the kind of movie we have the spoiler cast for, but let's give it a shot, giving a traditional review here. And if you want the spoiler treatment, listeners, look for that later on this week.
Yep. Definitely.
But okay, what's to like? I mean, first of all, if you're into whiplash-inducing plot twists, this is the movie for you. This is above and beyond your Gone Girls or like your Ocean's 11 or Mission Impossible. Just the back and forth plot twists are so numerous here.
Yeah, especially in the second half. I mean, that's when they all really happen, and it almost. It becomes a different movie because I want to say the first half for me felt like a real movie. Like, oh, reality exists and we're understanding who these characters are and they play within this realm of what I'm used to as people I could interact with. But then the plot sort of takes over in the second half and you got lots of things going just that are out of control, but that's the kind of movie it is.
I guess you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the movie Clue. It's like, that's how it could have happened. But here's how it really happened.
Yeah, except for it's not that self-aware, but it almost wants to be. Like, did you also get the vibe that it was like started out as a drama-ish, but it had some quirky charm with commentary from sub-character or from ensemble cast type characters. But then by the end, it was just full-blown silliness.
I do feel in general like it didn't choose exactly what kind of movie it wanted to be. And maybe in a way that was a strength of it. Like along those lines, what you're talking about, I did feel like it felt the way a comedy feels, like a
Hmm.
Paul Feig comedy feels. Like it's lighthearted, no one's taking themselves too seriously. You feel like you have to get ready to laugh because something could happen at any moment. Um, and that feels just like a different kind of reality, a different kind of real life than a lot of suspense thrillers. And in a way, that was sort of interesting. That was a little contrast, had some tonal dynamics to it.
Yeah.
But it also was a downside in that it didn't satisfy my needs for any of the different kind of movies it could have decided to be.
Right. It was like a nice experiment, but then, yeah, for me too, by the end, I was like, wait, but did that work? Or did it just kind of show the weaknesses of half baking different movie formats all into one?
Yeah, and to zip ahead, I guess we're sort of doing what didn't work. Just where it was only partially successful or maybe unsuccessful. When you talk about the end, and without too many spoilers, I guess I'll put it this way: it didn't really have the same sort of ending that I expect from like a romance or a romantic comedy or a romantic thriller either,
Yeah.
which is partly more real life, but partly just adds to my feeling of wait, so what's the point? What kind of movie did I just watch?
Well, that's how I felt. Maybe for a different reason, we got to the same outcome. Though, what's the point? The movie really just wants to be clever, but then undoes itself in that vein as well. And there's just like a lot of cliche, like, oh, okay, this is the scene where this person's pointing the gun and monologuing before another person gets to point the gun and monologue, like that kind of stuff. And I guess that's a light spoiler, but not really. I mean, that's the thing is, I wanted to really like this movie, and I'm going to say I'm a little bipolar about it, and well, not that's the wrong term, but the first half I really liked a lot more. I thought the setup and the two female leads, Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively, there was some electricity there, and it was intriguing their different perspectives on life. You know, Anna Kendrick being the mommy blogger who apologizes too much and um, has her own secrets, but is also just really peppy and full of energy and wants to be the one that's baking cookies and doing things for the school. And then Blake Lively's character being the high-powered woman in power director of PR in the big city, and then their kids becoming friends, and then their perspectives just clashing, and that friendship blossoming in the beginning. All that I really enjoyed. It's just that that was to service the second half of the movie, which was just as a payoff was like, oh, that's why we got that first half. Okay, that's not as interesting as I was thinking.
Yeah, I think the setup, the first part of the movie was great setup for something. It really
Right.
explored what it's like to meet a new person and sort of become friends with them, even though you're different kinds of people.
Yeah.
In a way that can be exciting and also weird at times. That was pretty good.
Yeah, for me too. It's the type of movie where if you had to like pause it and be like, "Oh, I'm tired. I'm going to watch the second half tomorrow." If you were watching it at home or something, and somebody asked you, "What did you think of that movie?" You'd be like, "Oh, it's. I mean, it could be really good. Yeah, it's And then you watch the second half, and then you give your final say, like, "Well, it's something else."
So I noticed in your interview you mentioned that you liked both Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively. You said something that brought their own kinds of
Charm.
charm or something
Yeah.
like that. I was a fan of Anna Kendrick. Um, I think. In fact, I'm going to come out. I think I'm going to declare myself an Anna Kendrick fan.
Got it.
Just been thinking about it, like the Pitch Perfect movies, Table 19, which I liked, way back into the woods, Up in the Air, or even Drinking Buddies, one of my all-time favorite
Oh
movies.
yeah.
Just occurs to me, I dig her mixture of like vulnerability and toughness, and her neuroticism, and I guess how tiny of a person she is. um, but she's good here too. As a mommy vlogger who's very nice and polite, and she has a chip on her shoulder about being in between the worlds of working mom and stay at home mom. I just liked her.
Yeah, I hear you. But I feel like this is all set up for why you didn't like Blake Lively.
Uh, I mean, fine, whatever. Just didn't do a whole lot for me above and beyond. But I didn't dislike her. But yeah, tell me what you liked about her.
Well, um, it's weird because she was just so mysterious. Well, until she wasn't, because then the movie overexposes her in a way. But in that first half, um, I liked how she just spoke her mind, and she in contrast to Anna Kendrick's character, who was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm apologizing again," and was doing the like cutesy, "I'm super naive, and I've only ever been a mom in the suburbs, and that's my role in life. I don't have anything." Like she was Anna Kendrick. I mean, and I'm downplaying. I'm overstating that maybe because it's not like I had a problem with it. It was just a certain type of character. But then I really liked how Blake Lively had all these tactics for dealing with men in the workplace, and how, oh yeah, you just got to hit them where it hurts and punch them in the face, verbally. And then Anna Kendrick is like, even if it's your boss, oh, especially if it's your boss, put them in their place.
Is that really good advice? I mean,
no, I mean, but it was just funny and like
okay.
just this sassiness and personality of like, she was living life openly with this weird mix of full transparency, but this obviously mysterious past and secret series of secrets that are part of her life too. But somehow I like the character of leaning into this faux transparency while it's really just a misdirect of covering up the stuff you don't want people to really know about you. But then it was sincere. She was still herself. I got the impression that character really was that way, even if it was a contained version of who she was, because she couldn't let out who she really was. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I get it. And I think she was fine for all that reasons. I think she was a well-written character.
Yeah.
And just fine. I will be the asshole and say that Henry Golding is he's strange to me. He's very handsome and he has a sophisticated upper-class English accent, but I just never get any depth with him. I mean, we saw him in this and Crazy Rich Asians. And I mean, there are a lot of actors and dreamy English guys who I look at and secretly sort of want to be like, oh yeah, I get his appeal. But Henry Golding just is like too blank behind the prettiness to me. Is that a weird thing to say?
No, I get that. And it's okay because you're a man saying it about another man. So you're fine. I thought he was serviceable. I thought he was fine. But he wasn't written as well. Like I didn't quite get his motivations. Apparently he fell for Blake Lively because she was just so mesmerizing. Like they did backstory as to how they got together. They have this passionate relationship. But then when they kind of reveal that it's actually, they fight a lot and it's more complicated, it just felt like there needed to be a guy in this movie to slot, that role that was in the script. Maybe I'm going to be the asshole and say it felt like a guy role that was written by a woman. I don't know.
Well, sure. It wasn't a super realized role, but I'm not talking about the role. I'm talking about the actor, the absolute actor. I just don't see much of depth in his characters.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say indirectly is I wonder if you got like a I'm just trying to think of who else you'd want in that role, and if they were working with that same material, if it would be that much better. Like if you got a Ryan Gosling,
I think absolutely yes. I think
maybe, but I think the writing and the not realized character is as much or more of the problem. But I guess that's just a thought experiment. But I agree with you. Henry Golding didn't help. Let's put it that way.
We've had 2 movies recently where I felt the exact same way. That I just didn't see the depth beyond the.
Yeah, he was like a smiling face. He's got a good look, and he says all the right things at the right times. But then you're like, wait, but who are you? What are you doing? Yeah, I hear you.
As far as guys with English accents who are handsome, I mean, Colin Firth or Hugh Grant in the day, I just think would bring a lot more personality to it. For example.
Yeah, good point. Actually, that'd be hilarious if one of those two, maybe 10 or 20 years ago, was in the role.
So we've gone back and forth. Anything else you want to say that you didn't like?
Oh, that I didn't like.
Oh, I have one. Actually, I want to throw this out to you. Come to think of it. Sorry to interrupt you after asking a question.
Go for it.
This usually isn't my thing that I get upset about, but I didn't like the way the flashbacks were used here.
Oh, hey, look at that. Logan is team anti-flashback. Love it. Tell me more.
Well, here, I mean, so one way they did flashbacks is to sort of show what really happened as, in contrast to what someone was saying or trying to hide or something like that. Again, not trying to be too spoilery,
Yeah.
but and they were mostly Stephanie's, Andrew Kendrick's character. They're mostly from her to get her backstory. But there's one in particular that was Emily's, Blake Lively's character.
Hmm.
And I guess it gave us some information. But I still feel like that was important information that I don't know how Stephanie got if she didn't see the flashback, but she still seemed to know. And
That's a good point, actually. That's a really good point. You're
and
like,
I
wait a minute.
and I feel like they sort of were playing coy with a little bit, like there was at least one other one where it goes on to the story into the infamous second half where things are starting to get weird, but then it puts a flashback to something that happened in the first half of the movie. It wasn't like a distant past flashback. It's like, why did you hide that until just now? Anyway,
Right.
I just didn't love the way they used the flashbacks in this movie.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan either. I guess other things bothered me more, or it just was part of the larger package of super convolutedness. Just by the second half, if I were to add to that, um, I mean, the flashbacks weren't great, but also just the plausibility of all this happening is just so off the charts that it becomes less enjoyable because it's just such a playground for every idea all at once in a way. I mean, if you read the synopsis that you can find wherever, it's like it's about secrets and revelations and love and loyalty, murder and revenge and betrayals and twists, and it's like, yeah, even that sentence has too many words in it, because it is about all those things, but maybe it should be about like 30% less things.
Yeah, it did go a little too far. That at a point I just got desensitized, I guess.
Right. One other thing, I wanted to see more of Andrew Reynolds.
Well, don't we all? He's one of my favorites.
He's funny. He was, and so they did this other thing that I thought was kind of annoying, where he was part of this group of parents that is commenting on the side, and it almost felt like this was trying to be like the less serious and almost more comedy version of Big Little Lies from HBO, but it just didn't do it as well. Where there's smaller characters and he's like a dad that's with the moms, but they just didn't give enough time to the ensemble cast. It was really about the two leads, and then whenever you saw Andrew Reynolds and then he had like two other friends with him that would make smart comments too, it's just like it felt like there was a lot of those scenes that were cut out and we only saw two of them, and then they're like prominently in another scene, which makes no sense except for that they're just part of the ensemble cast, so they have to be around everything else that's happening. That kind of stuff is kind of annoying.
Yeah, well, I mean, Andrew Reynolds is one of my favorites, certainly Broadway character actors, and I've liked him in non-Broadway stuff too. But yeah, I mean, it's just a small role. But yeah, sure, why not? Show him more.
Show more, yeah. Anyway,
okay. Well, I've said all I have to say. Do you have
me
anything
too.
more?
Now it's a pass. I mean, it's fun in some ways, but it's a pass.
Okay. Well, I've got a mini review for us, Bob. I watched Outside In.
Oh, what's that?
It is Duplass Brothers movie that came out this year. I'm not sure it was in theaters near us, but I watched it on, can't remember, Amazon Prime or something like that, some sort of streaming thing. And here's my mini review.
Now I'm super intrigued. Yeah.
Outside In, a classic Duplass Brothers special that makes low-key personal matters feel as big as they do to the people involved. 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, but tell me why you didn't like it enough to recommend it to me.
It just I mean, I like indie movies that are low key like this, but it just didn't quite hit that groove of indie movies that are just nice when someone says, I want something interesting, different to watch. Oh, well, let me tell you this indie movie you've probably never heard of that I think you'll like. And I liked it fine, but it just isn't going to be in my arsenal of movies that I recommend like that.
Yeah.
Jay Duplass is actually the actor of the brothers in this one. It seems like
Okay.
usually one or both is in one of their shows or projects. But
Right.
Jay Duplass is the main character in this one, and he plays a guy who went to prison when he was 18.
Oh.
And it was under not normal circumstances. I mean, the story sort of comes out as you watch the movie about what happened and why he's in jail and whether or not he should be. but he's there for 20 years. He comes out in his late 30s, trying to make a life for himself. It's
Wow.
pretty low income, working class environment he's in. But he just has a hard time as a convicted felon, murderer, in fact, trying to get jobs and things like that. And Edie Falco, I guess, plays his former teacher in high school, and she just in her volunteer work has been big in trying to help people wrongly convicted get out of jail, and she played a big role in helping him get out of jail. And
Was
then
he wrongly convicted? Was that part of it?
yes.
Okay.
um Whatever, I'll just throw that out there. It's not a huge part of it's not a plot based movie, so
Okay.
whatever. And they end up having a complicated relationship. When Jay Duplass comes out, he's like has a big crush on her, and then that takes its turns up and down. But what I liked about it, when I did like it, is just these things were a big deal to the people involved, but having a crush on an older woman who is married is not that big of a deal to other people, but it still shows you how it's a big deal to him, or how it's a big deal
Yeah.
trying to reintegrate life or try to figure out what you want to be when you grow up and when you're starting late, stuff like that. So it's good Duplass Brothers movie that way, but it didn't have that extra juice that's going to be in my bag if I recommend movies.
That sounds like you were almost recommending it to me because I like their movies, but it is kind of one of those things where a low-key indie movie by the Duplass brothers, you're not going to use your credibility. You're not going to want to start with that one, it sounds like. So
Yeah,
most people who don't see those types of movies, probably not the first one you'd recommend.
that's probably right, but I liked it totally fine.
Cool.
Anyway, what's your mini review for us, Bob?
I want to mini review The Wife.
Mm.
So this is with Glenn Close and Jonathan Pryce. Here's my mini review. Glenn Close delivers such a brilliant, Oscar-worthy performance full of subtlety and silent outrage as the ever-supporting woman in the shadows of her illustrious husband. The movie itself is good, but the performance better. 4 out of 5.
All right.
I can easily recommend this. It's a solid drama, but it's very contained and very straightforward. In all the right ways. It might, maybe if you have some superhero fatigue or you just want to see something different that's not that different, but what's old is new again, so to speak. She plays the wife of this author who, at the very beginning of the movie, you find out is going to win the Nobel Prize for Literature. And so that's how it starts. And then it's their trip to Sweden. Most of the movie's in Sweden. And actually, it's a Swedish director who did this movie. And it's got a little bit of satire towards this fuddy-duddy community of like smart people and awards and stuff. That's not what the movie's about, but that's kind of the backdrop is like, okay, we're in Sweden. This is a super serious event, but then everybody's like pampering them, and there's like a certain woman assigned to the wife that's like, oh, and which days would you like to do spas versus shopping, and what else can we do for you? Well, it's like your husband's gonna be very busy with the other intellectuals, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a spoiler, so maybe I won't say it exactly, but there is a more of a reason for her to be specifically frustrated by her husband's notoriety and winning position here than just the typical I'm the wife in the shadows. And that comes out over time through the course of the movie, which is all set over only a couple of days. And then there's Christian Slater, who plays kind of a journalist looking for a story. He does a great Christian Slatery job. He's great as a supporting actor. I really liked him in this, actually. But it's mostly about Glenn Close and Jonathan Pryce, and just lots of dialogue back and forth between the two of them as a couple. Really, really enjoyed it. Pretty straightforward. A good, solid drama.
Is this period PC at all, or is it contemporary?
Period PC light. It's set in the 90s.
Okay.
So yes, there's references to Bill Clinton and other contemporary stuff at that time. And by the way, like, it was only about 2/3 of the way into the movie's credit where I was like, oh yeah, this for sure isn't based on a true story. But like they do such a good job of like manufacturing everything that you are almost like, did I? Is this an author I should know? And then, eventually I figured out that like no, there was no based on a true story here, and that's almost a fault, I would say. Towards the end of the movie, a lot of things happen that are very, very stage play, like okay, lots of for your consideration, capital F filmmaking stuff happening, which is really good, but the plot is not as bad as A Simple Favor, which we just reviewed, but maybe a little too much happens again, but still really interesting.
All right. You do recommend it, and you
I
think
do.
that she'll be nominated for an Oscar. You think
Absolutely. I think it would be a huge upset if she was not nominated for an Oscar. I'll throw it out there.
so. It's always nice to get a head start on your homework for Oscars, huh?
Yep, for sure.
Okay, let's get to some weekend picks. There's mainly one that I want to talk about, and let me pull up all my extra info here. But Friday on Netflix, Maniac drops.
Oh, yes.
So yeah, I'm just liking the people involved. We got Jonah Hill and Emma Stone, who are two people that I've just liked more and more since they've evolved. We talked fairly recently in the last couple of months about how Jonah Hill is just really just popping out of nowhere and just being terrific.
Yeah.
And I've always liked Emma Stone. So I guess it's based on a 2014 Norwegian show. And Jonah Hill and Emma Stone are strangers that are connected by an unusual pharmaceutical trial that doesn't end up going as everyone plans.
Okay.
But some of the people behind the camera, we've got Cary Fukunaga, who was part of True Detective, the first season, the one everyone liked.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the adaptation of the novel the adaptation of the show is written by novelist Patrick Somerville, and he was part of The Leftovers, which you haven't really watched, but I think in its second two seasons, it was second and third season became one of the all-time great TV shows. Sally Field, Justin Theroux were also in there. So those are people I like too. So I'm looking forward to this one. I think it is one that I'm going to watch, this miniseries on Netflix.
I would like to watch it too, and I want it to buck the trend and be something original from Netflix that isn't just mediocre.
Well, I mean, House of Cards had a couple good seasons.
You're right. No, you're right. You're right.
But the trend is to be.
It is the trend down. It's not as dramatic as I made it sound, but it has been trending downward. Let's get a little blip up now, right?
I liked a couple seasons of Orange is the New Black too, but yeah, you're right. They're good, not greats, mostly from Netflix. So we'll see.
Yeah, cool.
Let's talk movies, Bob. What do you got for us?
All right. Well, it's kind of an eclectic mix here of options. I know the one that I want to watch, but it's limited release. I guess we could just go straight to that. This is what I want our pick to be, but we'll see. It's called The Sisters Brothers. And this is a Western movie. We've got John C. Reilly, Joaquin Phoenix, Jake Gyllenhaal. Wow. It's based on a novel, and it's about these two brothers who their last name is Sisters.
Yep.
And that's kind of part of the joke. And they're both brothers and assassins. And they're kind of goofball boys, but they're also like serious assassins. I just saw a preview for it recently, and I'm like, that looks like the type of quirky Western movie with the right actors that I totally want to see. And I bet Logan would want to see it too. So how do you feel about this?
I feel good. I've been seeing previews for a while now, and yeah, it seems comedic but dark. I don't. Well, I mean that's a time on our tradition, but it just seems like it's got a little bit of spunk, a little bit of personality, and I like those actors, so I'm interested in it.
Yeah, I think well said. So that is our pick, but it's limited release, so we have to see if it's really releasing where we can see it. Some other options for us though. There's this movie Life Itself. Now the reviews so far are not being kind to this movie. It's kind of a feel good about nothing. I mean, the title Life Itself, it's about a young New York couple that goes from college romance to marriage and birth to their first child. It's got kind of this, well, it's from the writer behind This Is Us, which is, I really like Parenthood. I never quite got into This Is Us, but this kind of family life vibe type show turned into a movie. Am I describing this well? How would you call it?
Yeah, well, This Is Us is the main touchstone for me too, and like so This Is Us and Parenthood are similar in the ways that they play on sentimentality. They try to make you cry
Yes.
every episode.
Something
But
like that.
I liked Parenthood more than I liked This Is Us too.
Me too.
So.
Me too.
But it has Mandy Patinkin and Oscar Isaac and Olivia Wilde. Oh, I like
Annette
those.
Bening. Yeah, it's good cast. It could be interesting, and it could be fun to watch. Even as I mean, who am I to say? Maybe it's a really good movie, and the critics just don't get it. Maybe we should revisit that and let people know what they really should know about this.
That's right. Maybe so.
Another wide release that I can't help but mention is Fahrenheit 11/9. Now, unless you've been under a rock, we live in a world where Trump is president, Donald Trump, and Michael Moore is making a new movie about that. It's his documentary style. Michael Moore, famous for 9/11 and Bowling for Columbine and a lot of other stuff. My issue here, Logan, well, I could go with lots of ways.
Oh, wow. You narrowed it down. Okay, let's hear.
Well, I watched, Michael Moore did a special right before the election where he kind of was, in my opinion, almost condescending towards this crowd. He went to some Midwest place that was very Trump heavy, Trump supporter heavy, and he kind of did this set piece where he came on stage and he's like, now I know I want to really connect with you. You know that Trump's not really going to win. And if he did, this is why it would be a problem. And he kind of just did this very he knew how the world works sort of 1 hour special. And I watched it, and it's not like I disagreed with him strongly. It was just the tone didn't work for me very well. And so for him to come out and make a movie that's all about how did we get here? How do we get out? You need to see this film before it's too late. This is a provocative look at the times we live in. And it's like, yeah, you kind of shot yourself in the foot on being able to be the mouthpiece for these types of discussions based on how I saw you approach it right before the guy got elected. That's my problem. I don't know if you care to comment, but maybe it's for a different show.
Well, I mean, I generally am not that enthusiastic about documentaries and political documentaries and Michael Moore's trademark cocktail of smugness and self-indulgence. So just not my thing, if I'm honest. So that's 3 reasons that I'm not that excited about this movie, but I guess I could be talked into it.
All right. Well, I want to do one more. The House with a Clock in its walls, and the reason for this one is because it's a PG kind of almost for kids thing with a 10-year-old as the lead, but it's got Cate Blanchett, Kyle MacLachlan, Jack Black. It's kind of got this fun adventure vibe, like an Amblin classic, like a E.T. or something. It's a magical adventure of a 10-year-old who goes to live with his uncle in a creaky old house. Sometimes I see these movies and I'm like, that's the type of movie I would have liked when I was 10, and maybe I'll still like it now. And I like those people, and it looks well done. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
All right. It looks a little young for me when I see the previews, but if you choose it, I'll watch it.
Well, really, I think this week is a question of logistics and which movies are going to choose to please Bob and Logan by being available where they should be or not. So we'll see what we're going to see, but maybe Life Itself, maybe
Sisters Brothers.
The Sisters Brothers, what we really want to see, but we'll see.
All right. Well, there you go. It's TV, it's movies, it's Practically Culture. There's some picks for you. Go forth and watch. And that's this week's episode of Practically Culture. Join us next week as we review, hopefully, The Sisters Brothers, maybe Life Itself, maybe something else. And we have the usual mini reviews and weekend picks. You can find more from us at practicallyculture.com and in your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. I'm at Logan Bo, Bob's at Bob Caswell. Send us a message, ask us a question, let us know how you like the show. Get out there and watch some TV and movies, people. It's good for you. Thanks for rocking with us.
Have a good one.